Hello, welcome to another episode of Field of Screens Podcast. Today we will be talking about Joker 2. Now there will be spoilers in this episode, so if you haven't seen it, get out now, come back when you do see it. But if you do intend on seeing this movie, if you are expecting a ultra-violent story about Arthur rising up to be this kingpin of crime and becoming this very powerful figure that's big enough to rival Batman, you might want to lower those expectations, because that's not what this movie is. It is a musical, which when I heard that, I didn't really have a problem with. They talked about Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn. I was very excited for that. I like Lady Gaga. I think she does an awesome job in most roles that she plays in, whether it be American Horror Story or A Star is Born, or whatever that movie was called with Bradley Cooper. She usually knocks it out of the park. So I was pretty excited for it. When I heard it was a musical, I was like, that could be kind of cool. If they're singing songs about the evil things that Joker does, or this weird downward spiral that Arthur may be going down. But it's not that really at all. The songs that they sing are songs that, they're not even original songs. They are songs that have played in other movies. When the Saints Come Marching In, that is one of the songs they sing. It's kind of weird. I'm going to get into spoilers, so again, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and get out now. But let's dive into this. So again, when this movie was announced, I was very excited. We have Phoenix returning, continuing the story from the first one, which I love the first one. We got Lady Gaga joining as Harley Quinn, which in this movie they just call her Lee. But the little bombshell of it's a musical. When that dropped again, I thought it could have been pretty cool. I saw bad reviews coming in fairly quickly, and I thought maybe it was just a case of, this movie's going to be a little different. Maybe it might just be a little different than the first. And I went and saw Maxine, and that got some bad reviews, and that was very different than X and Pearl. And I enjoyed Maxine quite a lot, so I was like, these bad reviews, some people are just picky, it's gonna be fine. So I was still pretty optimistic. Phoenix is an awesome actor, and in this movie he does an awesome job with what he has. And Lady Gaga does the same. When they were on screen, I feel like they did the best they could possibly do. The problem, I think, with this film kind of just lies in the direction itself and what they wanted to do with this film. The first 30 minutes, I was okay with the movie. I liked the Arkham Asylum. I kind of like the atmosphere, and I thought the acting was pretty good. When the songs started rolling in, they were kind of more classical. I think I read that all the songs used in this film, they have been used in some very high acclaimed movies, even dating way back. So there was kind of a purpose to that. I guess the film was trying to be artistic in doing that. And when they started doing the classic songs, I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to throw a hissy fit over just classical music. That's their decision. That's what they're going with. Let's roll with it. But eventually, as the movie was going, I was like, man, this movie is pretty slow. I feel like we're just hanging around Arkham Asylum in this courtroom forever. Arthur has his lawyer. He's talking. They're talking about just legal stuff. We do get a little background. They talk about Arthur's mother. He was abused by his mom's boyfriend, and I think his mom sexually abused him. So you just kind of get this tragic background to Arthur, and there's always bad things happening to Arthur. The security guards are using him for their own entertainment. Tell us a joke, Arthur. And Arthur will tell a joke for a cigarette. And you almost kind of feel bad for him, but I feel like the first film did a very great job as portraying him as this tragic man. And how this film gets going, when it's just constantly in the prison, talking about the legal stuff, it doesn't do as good of a job. And again, it's just very slow. There's not a lot of risk taken with this movie. This movie is risky in the artistic direction that it took, but as far as story goes, it was pretty bland, in my opinion. It just kept rolling with the court stuff. And eventually this movie hits a point to where Arthur goes, yeah, you know what? I'm sick of it. The Joker's coming. And I kind of like perked up in my chair. I'm like, okay, this is where it starts. And like for a little bit, it was fun. But eventually, like as the movie gets towards the end, like Arthur kind of quits on the Joker act itself. And to me, that was just very disappointing because, again, I wanted to see the rise of this dude. The ending of this film of him not being the Joker, and he inspires another guy who does claim the personality of the Joker, who's able to rise to it, to whereas Arthur does not want to. Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. In my opinion. Some people might like that. Some people might think that's a risky choice, and they respect that. But man, I really liked how Phoenix did his job in the first movie, and I was like, you know what? When The Dark Knight came out, people said that there would never be a Heath Ledger Joker. No one's ever going to come close to him. And then when Phoenix did the little portrayal in the first Joker film, I was like, man, Phoenix knocked it out of the park. That was great. I can't wait to see what they do with it. I hope they make another. Then they did, and I was like, okay, let's see if he can actually be the fully committed Joker. Let's see it. Let's see it. And then they just didn't do it. I feel like they had a gold mine of just material they could have used and continued with. Who knows, maybe Phoenix didn't want to do more than one other movie. I imagine it takes a toll on him. He is a method actor. And I mean, judging from other actors who have played the Joker before, it usually takes a toll on people. So yeah, I wish I would have got more of Joker Arthur. There's a moment where he's doing an interview earlier in the film, and he kind of snaps on the interviewer, and when he does, like, it just makes a great scene. And I thought that was just going to be the appetizer for what was going to come. But I don't know, I felt like that was probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie, and it was just simply a scene in the beginning where he's carrying on a conversation, and Arthur just gets a little fed up with constantly being questioned. Lady Gaga's role was very small, a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought the movie kind of pitched it that she was going to be the co-star. And part of me thought with the bad reviews, I'm like, maybe Harley Quinn's going to take the mantle, and the Joker's going to die or something's going to happen. But no, I don't even think they refer to her as Harley Quinn. Like, she's got the same occupation. They refer to her as Lee. She loves the Joker. Not Arthur, but the Joker. But yeah, I wish we would have got more Lady Gaga. And with this musical stuff, if you got Lady Gaga on board, Lady Gaga makes some bangers. So, just sticking to these kind of classic songs, I was like, man, we could have done so much more if you wanted to go the musical route. Yeah. Now, there's some symbolism in this movie, and it's the overall theme of this movie, which I think is the movie's biggest downfall, despite everything I've already said. It all kind of lays and festers into this one main central theme. And that theme is this movie is revolving around Arthur, all these different people in the movie, whether it be the security guards who are relying on Arthur for their joke, whether it be the movement who want Arthur to be the Joker, or whether it be Lee who wants Arthur to be the Joker, for her own personal acclaim. The symbolism is kind of it's undercutting the first movie and the fans of the first movie. And there was kind of a narrative that went with the first Joker film, to whereas a lot of people liked Arthur and liked his character, and him kind of rebelling against the system. A lot of people were worried. I think there was extra security that was called to theaters in New York for because a lot of people feared of what someone might do after watching the movie The Joker. And I think the director Todd Phillips kind of heard all of that. And this isn't a deep and secret take. Like, I mean, like, I've heard this parroted around. And that's why he kind of made this movie, to kind of just undercut the whole entire idea and just have Arthur suffer, because he killed in the first movie, and that is technically the right thing to do. I don't know, I just find that so disappointing, and that's why this movie's called Folie. I mean, I've never seen a director take a movie that has the franchise potential. I mean, like, you did this first movie that just completely rocked the box office, got a lot of people hyped on what you're doing. Phoenix's name went way up. And then you come out with a sequel, and then you just undercut it all, and you make the main character suffer, and then what's expected to happen doesn't happen, and instead he just kind of gets tortured, and then he gets finally, like, killed off. At the very end of the movie, like, there's like a bomb that goes off at the courthouse. These people free Arthur, and they're trying to drive him away in the car, but Arthur doesn't want to be the Joker, so he runs away from those people, which angers the entire movement that he started in the first film. He runs up to Lady Gaga, tries to get together with her, and she's like, "Oh, you're not the Joker, I don't want you." And she starts singing, and Arthur's like, "Please quit singing." And I think that was something everyone in the audience could agree with. But then, like, he's a free man running around, but somehow he ends up back into the prison. And while he's in the prison, he gets a little visitor, and Arthur gets kind of excited, like, "Oh, could that be Lee?" And before you even see who the visitor is, another inmate walks up and says, "Hey, can I tell you a joke?" And Arthur's like, "Oh, sure, of course." And he, like, listens to the guy. And the guy is just someone who's very mad at Arthur for not following through with the whole mob movement. And he ends up stabbing Arthur, and then he, like, carves a smile into his face in the background that is, like, kind of blurred, so you don't really see it. Very anticlimactic. Oh, and he also got raped, too, by the security guards. So, like, in the whole last final act, like, we see Arthur kind of, like, dismiss the Joker, the movement that he started in the first film, because his life completely sucked, because society sucked. I mean, society's in Gotham City. This isn't, like, New York City. This is fictional Gotham City, where, like, everything's bad, everyone's picking on him, no one wants to hear him tell jokes. And, like, this man rises up, and he sticks it to the big man. And that's why a lot of people like the first Joker movie. Because, like, it's a little man who's struggling in the world, and he finally gets his revenge on everyone. And he starts this movement where he says, "We're going to burn it all down. That's the only way we can fix this." But in this movie, he says we need to burn it all down, which means his movement. He abandons it. Everyone hates him. Harley Quinn doesn't want to talk to him. He gets raped, and then he gets stabbed, and he dies. But Todd Phillips justifies it by saying, he was being true Arthur, and he didn't need the Joker. That was the entire point of the film. Folie. The symbolism's all over the place, but man, oh man, like, how crazy is it that you take a movie that made so much money, and then this is what you do with its sequel? Oh, I need to quit repeating myself on this, but it just, literally after I watched it, it just made me sad. And it made me want to watch the first one and just pretend the sequel didn't exist. I mean, it takes courage to make a movie like this. And if you enjoyed this movie, I mean, good for you. Different people have different taste. But I was just very sad with what they did with the sequel. Now, this movie's losing a lot of money in the box office. There was reports that Todd Phillips was very hands-on with this movie. He didn't want to do an advanced screening for it. He didn't want to take recommendations. The studio kind of knew what the people wanted is, Joker rising to the top, which a lot of people say studio interference is always bad. It's not always bad, guys. Like, this is a case where studio probably should have stepped in, and they're like, "Okay, listen, like, you just got a courtroom drama going on here, and you're just going to completely throw away your character that was made so popular. We shouldn't do that." And, and if the entire reason for this is because of the controversy of the first film, and there are some people that said like the first film is a magnet to like incels or whatever. That's just stupid, in my opinion. Way back when I was just a kid, there was always an argument, do movies make people bad? Do video games make people bad? And it seemed like the crowd that was kind of criticizing that in the early 2000s was like the right-leaning crowd. Maybe the more religious crowd, they just thought violence and sexual scenes were just bad for youth in general, and they would encourage them to do bad things. But now it seems like the crowd for this movie is like the left-leaning people, and they're like, oh, it could encourage some crazy nut job, to do something bad. It's like, what? Why? Like the Joker film? Like, I don't know. I don't see it. Now, I usually try to stay nuanced, with a few exceptions, like movies like Jason Goes to Hell. It's very hard to stay positive with that. With this film, I will say the overall atmosphere is kind of cool in this movie, and the lighting was done really well. Like, there's some musical numbers where, like, Phoenix would be, like, standing on a table, and there'd be a light shining behind him, and it would look very, very cool. Again, the acting was done well. There's some parts where Phoenix kind of made me laugh. It was kind of a touching scene, but when Mr. Puddles steps into the court, and they call him Mr. Puddles, and every time they say that, Arthur just kind of goes like he's gonna crack up laughing. I don't know why. Like, that was just kind of making me laugh. But yeah, the good parts in this film, like, they can't overshadow what the overall direction of this film does. Again, if you like the direction of this, and how it ended up, good for you. But again, it's not my cup of tea. I probably should wrap this review up. I feel like every time I try to talk good about this film, I end up just twisting it into I did not like the direction or the theme of this movie. So I'll just kind of wrap it up. If you like this movie, comment down below and tell me why, because I am curious, what parts do you like? Do you respect, the different approach that they did? Maybe you like the classical music notes. I thought the songs went on a bit too much, in my opinion. See, I'm doing it again. I gotta stop. So yeah, tell me what you think. If you didn't like it like me, go ahead and comment down below too. If you're listening to this and you enjoyed me ranting about how much I didn't like Joker 2, give me a like. It helps get these episodes out to other people, and it helps out the channel. And if you're not subscribed, please do that. Again, that also helps. But again, thank you for listening, and until next time, guys.